Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan and today I'm going to be telling the fantastic story of 2020 draft prospect Zade Wisdom and his road from struggles to top draft prospect. Now, Zade Wisdom, to me, is one of the most underrated prospects in the 2020 draft. He is projected to right now go around the second round, but the talent that he has is absolutely amazing. When it comes to Zade, he has, in my opinion, maybe the best story of the entire 2020 draft. Coming from poverty, coming from struggles with his family, to being one of the top prospects in this draft. But how has Zade's story progressed over the years leading up to his NHL draft, and what can we expect to see from him going forward? Watch till the end for the full story and my opinions, and of course hit that subscribe button if you're new. Now, Zade's childhood wasn't exactly ideal, but that was one of the reasons why he's in the position he is now. He was born in Weston, a small diverse town outside of northwest Toronto, and that's where he pretty much spent his entire childhood. He was raised by his single mom, Marie, and also his grandma, which he called Kitty, which is the most adorable thing of all time. But one of the earliest memories that Zade ends up recalling is the day his dad ended up walking out on his family. Now, in present time, he actually has a pretty good relationship with his dad, and they've actually connected as a family now. But back then, that was one of the most permanent things in his mind. Also, another story that he ended up recalling was when he was coming home from school and the house didn't have any electricity, and his mom had to make the excuse that the whole neighborhood was out of electricity when that was just not the case. They could not afford to pay their electricity bills. That's how struggling they were in that spot, and that's the struggle that Zade had to grow up with. Now, before all of this happened, Zade actually had a love of hockey since he was a toddler. One of the stories that his mom ended up telling him later on was that as a toddler, he would throw temper tantrums on the parents when they would change the hockey game as like a 3-year-old. So instantly hockey was a love for him, and that's just how it became to be. Now, with their situation, they couldn't afford him to actually put him in the house league and have him in any hockey leagues whatsoever, so they pretty much just had him out doing stuff with public skates in outdoor rinks. And as Marie ended up working her hardest, she ended up having 4 different jobs just so Zade could play in house league, could actually play official hockey on an official team. That's the absolute grind, and that's what it took for Zade to just play hockey in the first place. Now, it wasn't just Marie making the sacrifice for Zade's hockey career. Just as he was pretty much a little kid, as Marie was working all these jobs just for him to play hockey, his grandma, who he called Kitty, which again is still the best thing of all time, drove him to those games in this beat up van while Zade was just eating his meals right before the game in the back seat. That's the type of sacrifice it took for Zade to get going in his career. And as the coaches started to notice that he was actually pretty good at this whole hockey thing, it took more and more of a sacrifice. As he went up to bigger levels and eventually up to AAA, their family had to pretty much rely on other people's generosity to actually be able to afford this whole thing. And especially as they got to the AAA level, they had a bunch of other families as well sacrificing and making sure that Zade could get to that upper level. That's what it took, not just his family, but other people's sacrifices to get Zade to where he needed to be. Now, Zade, when asked what he thought about this whole situation growing up, he said this: "I knew I couldn't afford it, so it's not like I went home and cried to my mom about it. I would just say I'm going to get there one day, and I'm going to help my mom get what she wants when she's older and make money off the sport that I love to play." And that would continue to be the case as he got better and better. He eventually, in Pee Wee hockey, ended up meeting one of the most influential people of his entire career, that being Levy. Now, Levy is a high-performance coach that played in junior, played in the college hockey ranks. He now specializes in working with multiple different hockey players. Recently, he's worked with guys like Akil Thomas, Jamel Smith, the ace in the hole. Guys like that really need that boost. But at the same time, for a guy like Zade, it would be one of the most influential things, because at that age, obviously he wasn't this amazing hockey player, but it would just be continual improvement. And the mindset that Levy would put on Zade would help him for years to come and will continue to help him throughout his entire career. Now, thanks to the help of Daryl Levy and Zade's continual progression, they would continue to be a great duo, and Zade would end up having a pretty successful stint in AAA and would be looked at as a pretty high top prospect for the OHL draft that year. But there began to be some red flags, some caution, and Zade would eventually be drafted in the 4th round by the Kingston Frontenacs. Now, the big reason why this was the case was his weight. He was 5'9", 15 years old, but 225 pounds. And there was a lot of scouts out there that were seriously worried about that. One OHL scout said that they were worried about that. They didn't even know what to do with him. They assumed some of it was baby fat, but it was like, holy freaking crap, he's 225 pounds. If he goes even more on that, he's 250, and he might not even be able to play in the OHL. That was the thought process for a lot of teams, but for Kingston, they took the risk on him, and it seemed to pay out. Now, over the summer after he was drafted, Levy would make it his mission to make sure that Zade was ready and conditioned for OHL ice. After that summer, he weighed 15 pounds less, was around the 205 mark, which is where he is today. He worked, he grinded, and that's just how it happened. Now, Zade, in a quote, said this: "It sucked. It was hard going into the OHL draft and dropping and having to grind my way back up. But I always told myself, sleep on it. Sleep on me. I want you to doubt me. I've been doubting my whole life, and it didn't stop me then, so why would I let it stop me now?" Now, Zade Wisdom would have his first OHL full season in the 2018-2019 season, getting 60 games played with Kingston, 3 goals, 7 assists for 10 points. But after that season, although some of that was due to the team he was around, he wasn't looked at as a guy who could even get drafted in this draft. NHL Central Scouting didn't even have him in the top 374 players to watch list at the beginning of the year. But Zade would end up proving a lot of different people wrong throughout the year too. Although Shane Wright's sensational status did help him quite a bit, Zade Wisdom also improved in so many areas, in his skating, in his skill, and it all turned out well. In 62 games, the Kingston ended up with 29 goals, 30 assists for 59 points, just being below the point per game mark and having a very successful season, all things considered. Now, as Zade started to rack up more points and just purely play better throughout the season, the NHL interest started to come in droves. In the mid-season NHL Central Scouting ranking, they had him 90th across all North American skaters. Then, in this recent Central Scouting ranking, they have him 54th among all North American skaters, a pretty humongous jump. And that is for excellent reason. Foster, the GM for the Kingston Frontenacs, said that he was the most consistent player on the ice, and a lot of GMs also agreed. In the Eastern Conference, he was ranked 3rd in the Most Improved Player Award, and that's pretty good in my opinion. Although he was very solid to begin the season, it just got better and better, and as Shane Wright and Zade got more chemistry, that was just a duo that absolutely dominated offensively. Although Kingston isn't the greatest team on earth, those two were just absolutely prolific. And I know it's pretty easy to say that, oh, he's with Shane Wright, and of course he's going to get points, and I do agree with that statement, but at the same time, from the games I have watched of Zade, which is a lot more recently, the more and more I just love his style of play. He was relentless on the puck, and of course, with the story he has, there is a lot of reason to be. He is always hardworking, always motivated on the puck, and always motivated to be the best player on the ice, which for a lot of games for Kingston was actually the case. He was a great line driver, producing some great offensive totals, but just creating a lot of offensive chances for Kingston all around. That's a player that I have in my probably early 2nd round at this point. When you factor in the work ethic that he's had to go through, the story that he's had to go through, this is easily one of the most motivated players of the draft. And I think that motivation alone could bring him to the NHL level. And the skill he also has, I think could produce a pretty solid NHL player when it's all said and done. And I'm gonna end with this last quote coming from Zade, where he said this: "I grew up seeing a lot of bad stuff, just seeing everyone around me having to fight for what they have. Seeing that growing up with my mom and my grandma having to do that, and even random strangers on the street having to do that. It just stuck with me. When I go on the ice, I have to fight for it. I have to earn everything I have. I've been doing it my whole life. And I just want to end on that quote, because when we're talking about motivation and prospects and work ethic, to me that is hugely important on if that guy translates and actually gets to that NHL level. Because there's of course prospects that have that top end skill, but if they're not motivated to actually do anything with it, if they're not motivated to reach the top of their game, not a lot of them are actually going to make it. And Zade has great skill on top of that, absolutely amazing skill, amazing potential, amazing work ethic. It's a pretty complete package for Zade. And although I don't think he's the most skilled prospect in this draft, when you factor in the work ethic, when you factor in the story behind him, that's a player that I'm going to be totally rooting for wherever he goes. Even if it is Chicago, I'll still support him. Zade, when questioned about what being drafted in the NHL draft would mean to him, he said this: "It would mean a future for me. I look at it as a need, not a want. I need to get drafted. That's what I need to do. It isn't an option for me. It needs to happen because I need to be able to help my mom out and get through with this family." It's one word to sum it up: need. I'm going to make it one day, and I'm going to make sure our power never gets shut off again. And oh my gosh, that is absolutely incredible. So, with this video, hopefully you guys did enjoy this one. Of course, if you guys are sticking around and are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Of course, comment down below if you're on the Zade hype train, boys, what you think of his story, how you see him as a prospect, and what you see of him going forward in his NHL career. Of course, with this video, share this one, get the story out there, boys, because honestly, it is absolutely fantastic. Of course, with this video, also make sure you click on this card to watch all of my 2021 NHL draft content right in one playlist. And I'll see you guys next video or stream. My name is Nathan. Goodbye.